This is Ocean Tower, $65 million, 31 stories, built to survive any hurricane on the Texas coast. It was supposed to become the most expensive resort address in the state. At 9:01 on December 13, 2009, it collapsed into 55,000 tons of rubble in 15 seconds. Not one buyer ever held a key, who approved a foundation survey that stopped short of the one layer that mattered. Why did the developer keep selling units for months after settlement had already begun? How does a concrete core built to withstand a hurricane end up destroyed by its own weight? And where did the $65 million actually go? To understand how it all went wrong, start with the island they chose to build it on, South Padre. It was 2005, and South Padre Island was in the middle of one of the largest coastal real estate booms Texas had seen in years. Developers were racing to build luxury high-rises along this narrow barrier island at the state's southern tip, confident that wealthy buyers would pay a premium for Gulf View's resort amenities and concrete built to withstand hurricanes. The island itself was hard to ignore. The Gulf of Mexico stretched along one side, the Laguna Madre bordered the other. Hotels and condo towers were already reshaping the skyline. But developer Antun Domit believed there was room for something far more ambitious. Domit had built subdivisions, apartments, and retail properties across South Texas. Through his company Ocean Tower LP, he proposed a 31-story condominium rising nearly 380 feet above the beach, one of the most prominent residential buildings on the Texas Gulf Coast. Almost 150 residences, private balconies, pools, a spa, a media room. From the upper floors, buyers were promised views stretching across the Gulf, the Laguna Madre, and the island itself. A full team was assembled to make it real. Walker and Perez on architecture, Datum engineers on structural design, Raba Kistner studying the ground beneath the site and recommending a foundation system, coastal constructor Southwest Ventures, a Zachary construction division, running the build. An experienced team, a waterfront site, a hurricane-resistant frame, a market of buyers who could afford all of it. Engineers drilled test borings into the sand, mapped the layers beneath the site, and signed off on a design calling for 401 auger cast piles extending deep into what the survey identified as stable ground. It was standard practice for a project of this size, and nobody involved treated it as anything else. More than 100 buyers signed contracts before a single floor was poured. Some units were marketed above $2 million. Construction began in 2006. For 2 years, everything tracked exactly as planned. The reinforced concrete frame climbed to full height. The exterior went up. Interior work began on the lower floors. By 2008, Ocean Tower wasn't just an ambitious proposal anymore. It had become the clearest symbol of what South Padre Island believed its future could be. That was the plan. Here's what actually happened. By early 2008, cracks began appearing near the base of Ocean Tower. They spread through beams, columns, and the connections between the tower and its parking garage. This wasn't surface cracking that a fresh coat could fix. The structure itself was under stress. Construction stopped in May 2008. Survey crews and forensic engineers moved in to find out why. The engineers who tested the ground stopped drilling at about 100 feet. They never went further because at 100 feet the sand looked stable enough to build on. A compressible clay layer began just 20 feet below that deepest soil test, running from 120 feet down to nearly 190. Ocean Tower's 401 auger cast piles extended about 95 feet into the sand above that clay, a few feet short of even where the testing stopped, and nowhere near the clay itself. Every pound of the tower's weight passed through those piles into the sand and pressed straight down onto ground nobody had ever measured. The soil was only half the problem. The heavy tower was tied directly into a much lighter post-tension parking garage. Their beams, columns, and slabs were built to behave as one structure. They didn't move as one. The tower's core sank between 14 and 16 inches. Its outer frame moved 8 to 14. The garage moved 4 to 8 inches on one side, as little as 1 on the other. On its own, that's real movement. But next to a tower sinking twice as fast, it wasn't moving fast enough to keep the two structures level. Picture 4 people carrying a rigid sheet of glass. Lower it together, it stays flat. Drop one corner a foot faster than the rest, and the glass bends until it finds the weakest point. At Ocean Tower, that stress didn't concentrate at one joint. It spread through the beams, columns, and connection points, tying the tower to the garage. Beams twisted, columns cracked. Concrete broke away from the reinforcing steel inside. The building wasn't sinking as one object. It was several objects pulling against each other. Temporary shoring went up beneath the damaged areas. The clay kept compressing anyway. The movement hadn't stopped. Then it gets worse.
The 31-story failed Ocean Tower high-rise. It's a $1 million plus beach to bay home property. It has marinas, boat docks. This is probably the most innovative.
In July 2008, with construction halted and the tower still moving, Ocean Tower LP filed a $125 million lawsuit against Raba Kistner and Datum Engineers. The developer alleged that the soil investigation had not gone deep enough and that the tower and garage had been connected too rigidly. Both firms disputed responsibility, neither admitted fault. But the lawsuit did nothing to answer the immediate financial question. Could Ocean Tower still be saved? One proposal called for separating the tower from the garage, installing new foundations beyond the clay, and stabilizing the remaining structure. The estimated cost was $20 to $25 million. That was enormous, but still less than abandoning roughly $65 million already invested. Then came the harder calculation. Even if the concrete could be repaired, Ocean Tower would still be the building that had sunk more than a foot before anyone moved in. Lenders wouldn't finance it easily, insurers wouldn't cover it cheaply, and the tower itself would carry a reputation no repair could fix. The repair might stop the movement. It could not repair the reputation. After further studies, the owners concluded that completing the project was no longer economically feasible. And here's the part nobody wants to answer. That same summer, while the lawsuit worked its way toward court, a different question was already playing out. Not whether Ocean Tower was settling, but how that truth was being presented to the people whose money was already tied to it. Soon after construction stopped, locals and local papers had already started calling it the Leaning Tower of Padre. On July 2, 2008, developer Anton Domit sent a letter to buyers acknowledging that the tower was experiencing differential settlement. He explained that engineers had identified a layer of expandable clay beneath the foundation and that the building's weight was compressing it. Buyers now had a letter acknowledging the movement while rejecting the name the public had given it. Domit was not the only person trying to control how the problem was understood. South Padre realtor Alice Donahue continued marketing the project as a buying opportunity. She said the tower would return safer and stronger than ever and described the crisis as a rare chance to benefit from the losses of insurers and investment companies. One message acknowledged the damage while minimizing its image. The other repackaged the same damage as a discount. The facts did not have to be hidden. They only had to be framed carefully enough to keep the sale alive. Then the bill came due. By November 2008, the sale story had collapsed. Domit released buyers from their purchase agreements and said their earnest money would be returned immediately. More than 100 contracted sales disappeared from the project. Homes that had existed in brochures' retirement plans and investment portfolios would never receive a single resident. For the developer, the failure was measured in millions. For buyers, it was measured in plans that had suddenly become claims for money they were supposed to receive back. Whatever happened to the foundation next, it wouldn't undo what had already happened to them. Only one bill was left unresolved: what would happen to the building itself. By August 2009, the lawsuit against Raba Kistner and Datum Engineers had settled for just under $3.6 million, a fraction of the $125 million originally sought, and far short of the $65 million already spent building the tower. No trial, no admission of fault, just enough money to close the case, not enough to close the loss. That same year, Ocean Tower LP hired Controlled Demolition Inc. to bring the building down. The demolition team quickly discovered one final irony. The tower was too damaged to finish, yet far too heavily built to demolish easily. Its reinforced concrete core had been designed to resist hurricane winds. Thick walls were packed with multiple layers of steel. Independent testing later found the core had cured to more than 10,000 psi, nearly double the 6,000 psi the original design called for. The building was both exceptionally strong and dangerously unpredictable. Marc Loiseau, president of Controlled Demolition Inc., had helped bring down roughly 2,000 structures over more than 4 decades. Ocean Tower became his most daunting implosion, not simply because it stood nearly 380 feet tall, but because nobody could be certain how the damaged structure would respond once the first charges fired. The crew had to correct its slight lean, guide it away from nearby homes, and collapse 55,000 tons of concrete into a narrow footprint. Only 3.5 seconds in the firing sequence stood between a controlled collapse and a 31-story tower falling sideways into homes less than 150 feet away. Crowds gathered by the thousands at nearby hotels and along the water to watch, treating the fall of a $65 million tower like a fireworks show. For the buyers who once wired deposits toward that same skyline, this was the last image of their investment. 2 years later, in November 2011, a group of condominium buyers forced Ocean Tower LP into Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Ocean Tower disappeared in seconds. The buyers' claims did not. Ocean Tower was more than one failed structure. It was a system that let incomplete information, confident marketing, and divided responsibility place risks onto buyers who could not see what lay beneath their investment. Nobody who made that decision was ever asked to justify it. Would you have signed that contract on a $2 million condominium after reading DeMitt's letter, or would you have walked away? The same warning is already playing out in San Francisco. Millennium Tower spent years sinking and tilting beneath some of the city's most expensive condominiums. A retrofit initially billed at $100 million that ended up costing closer to $120 million brought the sinking under control. It didn't fix the market. Years later, units still sell below their old prices. And the building became safer long before buyers trusted it again. Different foundation, different ending, same warning. The next warning may not look like a leaning tower. It may look like a luxury unit offered at a price too good to ignore. You just don't know which one it is yet. This project took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.